So I don't have any big announcements today. Nothing huge to go on. I did, and this will be news to Liz as well. I did update the PFAS sampling guidance that we have to acknowledge that we now have an MCL. So there aren't any substantive changes there, but the one that we put out in December of 2019 talked about the planned MCL. So all of that language was just changed to recognize the promulgated MCL. But it doesn't, we were planning for it. We knew it was coming. So there's nothing substantive in that. But if you're giving it to somebody to explain kind of how DEP and waste site cleanup in particular deals with PFAS, the updated one is probably a better one to hand out. And I remembered to do that because our central region wanted to hand that out. And I thought it would be a good idea to make that update. So that's all I have. Any of the DEP staff want have something to bring up, mention, talk about? No, we're doing our regular rounds of public meetings and things like that, getting pretty good about that.
There's upcoming training that was just announced for DEP credit for the November 18th meeting that John Ziegler is doing, understanding audits and avoiding common issues.
So that was approved by the board. Meeting was yesterday, the day before, something like that. And we got the certification form already. That's good to have. And it's in the hands of the LSBA now. So they'll be ready. So that's looking pretty good. Anything else? What are DEP staff want to bring up before we open it up? Anybody going to been going to the Soils Conference? Ken, and any good things that you've seen?
I'm muted. Yeah, the usual climate stuff. It was pretty good. Then there's going to be El Napo stuff, which should be pretty good. I'm excited for Larry's talk next Wednesday, right? To learn about his casino wars.
Oh yeah, well, we're all excited about that.
That's for LSP credit too, right?
It is. So I should check and see, but I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah, I think it is.
I just read an article yesterday about Steve Wynn is back in sight, giving large amounts of money to the Republican Party and various candidates.
Oh man,
so he hasn't gone away.
Thank God.
For a talk, but he's sort of out there.
Well, we'd rather talk about the cleanup that happened there. We'll leave the politics aside.
You mean the environmental cleanup?
The environmental cleanup, yes.
Right.
As opposed to any other cleanup that might have had to happen. So that's something to look forward to. Anybody else see anything good at the Soils Conference, or anything in the news you want to talk about or point out? Environmentally related, please.
New guidelines on exposure for COVID. That's disturbing. Instead of 15 minutes at a time, it's 15 minutes over the course of 24 hours. That's tough.
Yeah. Well, just makes me want to hide down in my basement.
Nope.
For longer periods of time. Although for the DEP staff here, I would just point out that I go into the office once a week and pretty much see nobody in that. So they, you know, this balance of mostly staying home and occasionally going into the office, you know, it doesn't get you any, it doesn't relieve the social isolation. Going into the office is just about as socially isolating as staying at home, but at least it's a change of venue.
It actually may be a wee bit worse because I go in 3 days a week. And it's an office that's usually 100 people and I might see 3 or 4.
Yeah,
And it just
Right.
seemed weird.
yeah, I think you're right. It's sort of less weird to be at home than it is to be in an empty office.
Yeah.
I actually get a change of venue because I'm working a 4-day work week, so I have a second job. I build bicycles at Landry's 1 day a week.
Oh,
Build about 10 bicycles a day, and
Wow.
I'm having a ball.
The Landry's on Route 9?
Yep.
Oh, wow. What days are you there?
Whenever, I mean, I work it around my regular schedule, you know, like I typically don't do it on Thursday. I did it, I think Tuesday this week. I
Oh,
was
wow.
there for 8 hours, and it's great. It's such a different mindset of what we do on a day-to-day basis to just be able to sit there and put bicycles together.
Yeah.
that's what I'm looking forward to when I retire from DEP, to have a job where you just go in and you have like one thing to do. And for me, rather than making bicycles, I want to make croissants, but you know, it's the same sort of thing.
Joel, are they catching up on all those back orders for bicycles?
Close. We're starting to get through the back orders and into like stock bicycles that they just put in stock at the various stores. Natick and Worcester, I think, are the 2 headquarters that build for the rest of the, I think they have like 8 different stores now. So, you know, we're putting through about 1,000 bicycles a week.
Wow.
Oh, holy cow.
Please,
It's great.
it's a lot.
Yeah, there's a store on Needham Street in Newton. So.
Yeah, we feed that store too. When we take the box, it says what store it's going to, and then we put that tag on the bicycle when we're done.
So if I go to Landry's with my mountain bike that hasn't been tuned in several years, am I going to have to wait like a month for it to get done?
Why don't you just come to Joel's garage in Ashland?
I might have to. I might have to.
I do that all the time.
I've only got like what's supposed to have, how many gears are those things supposed to have? Like 21 gears. I only have
Yeah.
like three that work.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
Well, the bike is a good thing, right, Joel? I mean, boy, on a bike, you're really going to be, you know, that 15 minutes of direct contact a day is no problem. You're just zipping by people left and right, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I got my bike tuned up when we were up in Maine. I got up to Mount Desert Island and realized that, oh, my gears were working, but my brakes weren't quite as good.
That's a problem.
But they turned around very quickly. And Ken, you really should, because it makes such a vast difference getting your bike tuned up every once in a while. I think I'll
Having
wait.
no brakes is only a problem at the end of the ride.
I know. And it's not like that there are any hills on Desert Island.
Yeah, no, not at all.
None. Yeah.
Rachel asks how much a bike tune-up costs these days.
I think I honestly don't know because I don't deal with that end, but I would guess about 50 to 75 bucks.
Yeah, I think that's around what it was when I had mine tuned up.
But the
plus
problem,
whatever.
the problem, as Ken said, is the waiting line.
Yeah.
So is that 50 to 75 bucks the price at Joel's garage, or is that,
No, you know, a couple of beers, that'll do it.
$120.
I
What's
went
that?
looking for a mountain bike for a graduation gift for my son in the spring, and they just laughed at me. They did offer me the $5,000 bike that they still had in stock.
Well,
Yeah.
I have been, for friends, able to push them toward the front of the line when they want to get a new bicycle. So give me a call.
But I can't do that. I can't do that, Joel. That sounds like it might be of $50 value.
Luckily, you know, the winter is coming, that hopefully the lines will slow down, so Ken, plan on getting your bike fixed up, in mid-January,
Yeah, that's
when
what I'll
nobody's
do.
really thinking about it.
I'm getting pretty good with 3 gears though. It's pretty good.
Yeah, we were talking about this actually last night over dinner, because my son's girlfriend was over, and they had borrowed, she had borrowed my wife's bike last weekend, and my wife came from Indiana, and when she first came to Boston, she only had a 5-speed bike, pretty basic older bike, and maybe only 1 or 2 gears worked. And in Indiana, that didn't matter, because it's just so flat. And she had to relearn how to bike when she got here, and we were living on Mission Hill. So just, that last quarter mile getting home was a big problem for her.
I have a fixed gear that I made out of my father's old Royce Union. I think it's as old as I am. And
Wow. Royce Union.
I use that for training, riding it as a fixed gear, or for longer rides, just riding it as a single speed.
Yeah, I when I was in the Peace Corps, I had a Chinese single speed flying pigeon bike. It was called, which was great exercise. There weren't a lot of mountains around, but there's some nice hills, and
yeah.
And it was a sturdy bike, not lightweight, not meant for speed. So nothing environmental today, other than COVID related stuff. The upcoming LSPA meeting, the soils conference, various PFAS stuff. The sampling of the public water supplies are now kicking into high gear now that it's required. The private well sampling will be kicking off, I think, pretty soon. We've just been putting together a Q&A on kind of what it might mean to find contamination in the private wells. So you might, if you have a private well, you may be interested in volunteering or helping kind of gather people to volunteer their wells. And I don't know, I think that's a lot of the stuff that we've been dealing with. Is there a way to find what the contracts between municipalities and haulers look like? Like waste haulers?
Yeah, sorry. I'm an outsider, so this is my first time being in this house hours. Didn't really know how to ask questions or not.
This is not the usual. We have very little to talk about today, so we usually actually have more meaty things. But so waste haulers, like solid waste.
Yeah, like solid waste haulers and municipalities. Is there? I was trying to understand a little bit more of that space, and thought that this. I was trying to find just how municipalities and haulers contracts look like, and I couldn't find anything online. So I thought that maybe this office hours would be a good place to ask that question.
Well, for us, it's a little off topic, but that doesn't bother me at all.
Sorry, I didn't know where to go.
Oh, no, not at all. I'll take a stab in that. I would assume that the contracts that municipalities have are part of public record, and that there would be ways of kind of going, but it probably would have to be municipality by municipality to look at that. I don't think DEP on the solid waste side of things, which we're not. I don't think we really have that much interest, or certainly don't compile the financial side of that, the contracts, how the municipalities pay to get rid of their waste. We're concerned about that they need the appropriate permits and have the appropriate permits, and that they send things to the right destinations, but how much they pay for that is not something that we really do. and somebody put a link to Combis, which Combis, if you have not had the pleasure of working with it, is the state contracting website. It's certainly where I'm more familiar with it in putting up things out to bid. So I would ask, I'm not familiar with it. I don't spend that much time on it. Are the kind of final contracts listed there as well?
I believe so. And I don't believe I needed any special permission to get into it when I did this a while ago. But in any case, it might be worth something worth exploring. And again, I don't think it would show municipal contracts, but if you're looking for government contracts, if that's helpful in your inquiry, you might see something there that's interesting. If I were interested, I mean, I think that most other contracts are public records. So obviously, any member of the public has the right to make a public records request. So that could be another avenue for you to explore as well.
So how do you, I guess this is probably the first time I've tried to make a public service, public record request. Do you just go up to the municipality and email them?
I would contact the municipality and ask them the best way of doing it. Yeah. And if that doesn't work, you might want to do a little bit more research yourself.
So the FOIA, the public records law was updated a couple of years ago. It's run by the Secretary of State, who has a website, and every municipality has to appoint a public records officer. Usually it's the city clerk. So the municipality's website would probably have information about how to make a public records request.
And whether, I think what Luke was probably getting at was that you're sending an email to, if it's a, if you're interested in the solid waste contracts, the Public Works Department, whoever handles that, an informal email asking, where you could get a copy of the contracts might be a quick, easy first step. Formally filing a public records request would be another one if the easy way doesn't work.
Right. Now, it would depend on your style and your relationship with the municipality and other factors.
And the municipality.
And the municipality. So that would be something, yeah, I mean, that would be, you'll gain experience yourself and explain to us how best to get documents from municipalities.
Got you. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I just posted, the Secretary of State, as somebody mentioned, does have overall jurisdiction over public records issues. The initial request would go to the municipality that holds the record, but I just posted something that talks about, that's the Secretary of State's Guide to Public Records. And they have a website as well.
Awesome, thank you.
This does not constitute legal advice. I have to say that.
No worries, no worries.
And it's true, it doesn't.
I just had honestly just a lot of questions about the MassDEP's kind of vision in terms of like landfills as well. If that's something else I could ask. Like I heard that in 2021, the landfills would basically be shutting down except for one there in Massachusetts. Does that mean that they're going to be diverted to Ohio or to other areas, or?
Well, good timely question. First, and I'll state again that this is the wayside cleanup program, which doesn't that's again not our area of expertise, but it all kind of overlaps a little bit. The state, our solid waste program, has their solid waste master plan out for public comment right now. And I think the public comment period has been extended until early December 10th or so. And you can go to the mass.gov/DEP and if it's not obvious, look for a solid waste master plan, and that lays out the department's vision for for the future for handling solid waste. And one thing to keep in mind as you read that is that we actually have very little, I'm going to describe it as very little influence over kind of the presence and running of landfills. So it's not that DEP is opening or closing landfills. That's all kind of in the private sector. And certainly what we do in our policies must have some effect on that. But I think the bottom line, and you can open it up for everybody else to go in, is that to the extent that there are fewer and fewer landfills in Massachusetts, it's not a conscious decision on DEP's part to minimize that. We would actually like the solid waste generated in Massachusetts to be managed in Massachusetts. I think that's one of the underlying goals of the solid waste master plan. But we can only act on requests for landfills as they come into us. As the private sector decides that you're putting a landfill, creating a new landfill over in this town would be make sense from a business point of view, and they apply to us to do that. We can act on that, but we can't force people to create new landfills. We're not in the business of creating landfills ourselves, of owning and operating them. We just react to what's proposed to us. But the solid waste master plan would be a really good place to start to see kind of where we think it's heading and kind of how our policies might influence that.
Just to add to that, they have a advisory committee meeting, solid waste advisory committee meeting coming up on November 19th, and that's open to the public.
And that would probably be on the DEP's calendar somewhere.
If you Google MassDEP solid waste master plan, you'll get the plan as well as all of links to that other information about upcoming meetings.
Okay. Did you say it was November 19th?
Yep.
It's not on the DEP calendar. Oh,
but it's on their advisory committee page.
Yeah. So look for the advisory committee page, and I'll mention it to people that can get it on the calendar.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yep. Well, good. Anybody want to talk about anything else? Solid waste related, wetlands related? We're game for anything.
How about topsoil related?
Topsoil meeting?
Topsoil related. I had an experience this week. I have a site, and they kept so interesting because they redeveloped the property. They brought in clean fill and topsoil because it was an industrial site, and so we were now testing the topsoil to make sure that it met residential direct exposure criteria for condominiums, apartments, and it failed for DDT compounds and for the PAHs, particularly the benzoate pyrene, benzoate anthracene. So not everywhere. So we were getting ready to do selective excavation, and there weren't very big spots we were able to delineate. And they went down to Home Depot and bought 10 bags of Scott's topsoil, 0.15 foot. And we tested everything again and found out that the Scott's product was about twice to 3 times as high a concentration of benzoate pyrene, benzoate anthracene, CD pyrene, as the stuff we taking out. What's the criteria? So I was just curious, because the client necessarily, or understandably, I would think, upset at saying, hey, we bought this stuff off of Home Depot. How can they be selling stuff that the state says isn't fit for residential use when you're selling it to people to put in their yards? So I was just wondering, Massachusetts, you ever looked at that? because we were trying to figure out where would the PAHs have come from, particularly because people selling commercial topsoil like the popular Scott's brand, I think are manufacturing it.
Yeah.
So how would, could that be a byproduct of composting somehow? You get those compost piles really rolling and smoking. Is it possible that they're pyrolyzing some PAHs? So I just thought that was interesting. We're having fun resolving it with your cousins down in Connecticut. But in the meantime, it brought up a question. I mean, most people just buy commercial topsoil, and I don't think they would think to test it. But it does raise a question of whether or not it meets the criteria for residential use. So just a thought.
Yeah.
Just another problem Matt keeps bringing up.
Yeah, that mass.
Doesn't happen in Mass, huh?
So it is interesting how how topsoil is manufactured, and you're right that there's certainly a potential for composted material. What's in the compost then gets blended with sand and clay and other materials to manufacture topsoil. And we have seen situations where I haven't seen too much with pHs, but certainly lead, where the leaf litter and material that's collected by, let's say, just certain large cities in Massachusetts, the compost material that results from that ends up being high in lead. And it's probably, you rake the leaves from around the buildings, you're picking up some lead paint chips as well, and that gets mixed in. Where, if you're seeing PAHs, it would depend on what's getting in that as well. But we have seen problems like that in lead, with compost, which would probably translate to lead in the manufactured soil as well. But the community composting operations, I think many of the cities test for things like that, or the
test for the metal, because UMass has nice soil standards for topsoil and metals. So they do that for total metals, not leachable.
Yeah.
But it was just interesting, when I worked years ago, when Mass Housing for HUD did all the projects in Boston, we had to buy thousands of cubic yards of topsoil. And of course, with the topsoil export problems, it had to be manufactured topsoil. And we did have quite a bit of trouble trying to get topsoil that would meet criteria. And the biggest problems were, as you mentioned, lead, but also PAHs and DDT. Chlordane, but primarily DDT. And when we investigated how they made it, yes, they use a sort of topsoil reclaimed by construction projects. Often when residential properties convert to commercial or something, and they strip the topsoil and contractors sell it back, and compost and waste and gel and a whole host of things, and all those in a big topsoil manufacturing operation, and comes back out again. But it was interesting to run into unexpected problem of one, finding out that the topsoil
I would
failed the first time, going and saying, okay, we're going to try to avoid that by, since we only need like 5 or 6 cubic feet to patch over this area, we'll just go down and buy it at Home Depot and pay $2.37 a bag for it, and find out that stuff was even worse than the stuff we were taking out.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting.
Yep. So, and one, not to dwell on this because I don't have any good answers for it, but the kind of the other thing that struck me as you were describing the situation early on was bringing in fill at the beginning and testing it after it was placed. So I think certainly we would recommend that if you're going to be bringing in fill to an area, to the extent that you can, have it tested before it arrives. So
That great to my clients and pointed out they wouldn't be in this situation if we had been allowed to do that, but they were in a hurry at the time, and so that was what. So they bought their 10 bags, opened up the 10 bags, dumped them in a pile next to the place where the soil was going to go in, and then had us representatively sample it and analyze it, and found out what we found out. So at least we didn't put it in first this time, but we're sort of despairing as to where to go find something that will meet criteria. So that's where we're at now.
Yeah, now you have me worried about what my tomatoes are growing in, because I got like 10 bags delivered in the spring.
Well, the thing is, Paul, I mean, so this was a commercial site, so we're doing 8260 ND for everything, 8270 PAHs, 8081 DDT compounds, no PCBs. Metals were all okay. Lead was like 40. It was 40 milligrams per kilogram. We ran, BPH, EPH, all fine, but just interesting. So yeah, maybe better not to look too closely, Paul, at what you're planting your tomatoes in.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I'm going to run out and sample myself. But I'm going to participate in a soil discussion with NUMOA in the other states in the next couple of weeks. So I think I'll bring this up and see how if other people have encountered it in the other states.
Well, it just seems like a public, the client's position is, isn't this a public policy issue that they wanted to discuss with, again, the state of Connecticut, not Massachusetts, but, here are people selling a product which apparently meets fitness for use in some manner, shape, or form, because they're being allowed to sell it, but at the same time, the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection says this is not fit for use in its proposed application. So it just makes it an interesting question.
Yep. I'll agree with that.
I wanted an environmental topic related to waste site cleanup, so.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and it is part of, one of the interesting things, not to belabor this too much, but certainly our standards here in Massachusetts for the PAHs are adjusted to account for existing background levels. So they're not even strictly kind of the risk-based levels. They're adjusted upwards to take into account the 90th percentile of the background. So it's interesting that what's coming in the store-bought versions may exceed even that. But I don't think it's well, we'll see what comes of it. We'll have some more discussions about it. But it does highlight that we don't regulate consumer products. If we did, we probably would take steps to reduce levels of PFAS as well, but in consumer products. But we won't go there. And you didn't sample your soil for PFAS, which might be a good choice at the moment.
Not yet.
Not yet. Run out and do that. Let us know what you find.
Well, you'll be among the first to know, Paul.
Not if it's sampled in Connecticut. But, okay, anything else you guys want to Takara, it looks like Elliot's getting ready to say something. You're muted though.
I've got some contractors in the house
Ah,
installing a marble for a rebuilt fireplace.
Oh,
nice.
So it's very exciting, except they brought the piece in. It's like too big.
Go out, cut it, bring it back.
Yeah. Let's just hope they don't break it when they cut it.
Okay, anything environmental related, Elliot? How's work? Are they keeping you busy?
Yes, I'm staying busy. And I did go to the UMass conference, and I'm going again today, starting at 1. We had a company booth. I guess they have exhibitor booths. So I staffed the booth yesterday for 2 hours and got not one visitor. So.
yeah, I'm doing it for the LSPA today, so we'll see how many there are. Matt, what's your traffic been like? Matt's been doing this for a couple of days.
Well, just Tuesday and Wednesday, but yes, Tuesday, Michelle came, Mike Penzo came and talked to me for a while. Yesterday, Phil Warner came and talked for a while. But the thing that helps, Larry, is if nobody comes for like 40 minutes, the Zoom thing shuts off. It says, oh, you were idle for 40 minutes. Bye.
Oh.
And you have to restart. So you have to. So people, please come and visit Larry from 4 to 6 today. At least every half hour or so, someone stop in and say hi so that the Zoom thing doesn't shut off and make him start it up again.
Yeah, we'll be serving wine and hors d'oeuvres, so come on over.
Ah,
So if you've applied for LSP credit or paid for LSP credit, I got sort of an email forwarded to me from someone else that you're not supposed to log off even during the break. I guess you got to leave your thing logged on all the time. And I guess some people had trouble logging on initially, and so they sent out an email that you can rewatch the part. I mean, some people had trouble for like half an hour trying to log in. But I got in. But what's that? Go ahead. I was just going to say, Larry should remind everyone that OSPA we're giving away, right? 1 or 2 hours of LSPA.
Yeah, I'm giving away seats at courses. Come enter the raffle. Drop your card in. Or whatever the equivalent of that is.
No, the presentations are good. I mean, it seems to be working well. The thing I find odd is some of the speakers have recorded the presentation as opposed to just speaking, and it's kind of echoey when I hear it. But I think in general, it's been pretty good.
okay. Well, if that's it, or have fun at the Soils Conference this afternoon, and we'll see you back next week